Hello, this is Max Rafe. This is the second part talking about 3D PDFs and JavaScript. On here, one of the things with the JavaScript within Adobe is it doesn't stay in there. There's no memory within the 3D PDF file. So anything that you do is sort of transitory. You can do things like comments, which will be saved. So if I've got a comment here and I just add a bit more to it, and if I go save, that will actually save. So if I close this down, I'm actually just going to blow this comment away. Somewhere along the line. Yep. Irritating. Delete. Delete. Yeah. Okay then. So this one here, we've saved it, and there it is. Save Yahoo. Now if I close out of this screen here, and if I come back again, it comes back as what it was originally. So there was no color. If I turn the shut your face, you. If I turn the roofs off, if I turn it to transparent, and if I close back out of that again, you'll see when I come back in again. Oh, sorry, one of the things there again, it doesn't do. But if I go to transparent and I go to roof off, you'll see I can't even save it because it actually doesn't see that anything saves. These are just actions, which are transitory ones inside Adobe, which is done by the JavaScript, but they're not being staying live. So there are things that you can do like comments and stamps, which will actually stay inside and modify the PDF, but there's things the JavaScript doesn't. So it's been set up to do that in a way. Now, the first one that I was actually trying to do was I want to turn the roofs on and off. So I suddenly thought, oh, I can just come up here onto that roof button there, turn, and off they go. Now you see how when I touch that top button there, the rest of the tree below it all turn off. So that's really cool inside the model tree. When you're doing it programmatically though, what happens is that turns off, but in fact the rest stay on. And you see the roofs haven't gone away. The roofs are right down here. Now these are nodes. All of these ones here, all of these ones here, and all down the whole tree here, these are called nodes. But the ones which actually have geometry attached to them are called meshes. So if we come into our PDF story maker here, we can actually see a node is an object within the scene hierarchy. And we have a mesh, which we had just there, and we scrolled up and lost it, is a node object that contains geometry. Now, there is a mesh object with no geometry, has children of nodes. So mesh has geometry, but one of the things that node has as well is that if I just come down into this tree through here, is that you'll see there's no data down here. There's no information. There's no data at this level here. But at this level here, I've got a whole lot of information about my my parameters that I brought over from Revit. So a lot of these here on this node through these tree points here, these are actually categories that have come through from Revit. So basically, as per Revit, it's got doors, it's got nurse called devices, but the naming convention is different. It actually says inside the PDF, I've got doors, I've got 5 of them through there. Nurse called devices, I've got 5 of those. They're actually my icons. Plumbing fixtures, I've got 8. And if I go through and look at my plumbing fixtures, I've got 3 basins, I've got 2 showers, and I've got 3 toilets. So again, the actual visual element, if I actually just flick down, I'm just going to drag that down because we're not interested in that part here, into the plan view, and if we just go into a toilet and we drill down through one of the toilets down to the node level, down to the node level, we'll see that the actual geometry itself is right down at this level here where we turn things off. Sorry, I'm turning them back on again, aren't I? So you see where it's gone invisible there. So when I'm actually trying to actually do something visually, I've got to go right down at this particular level here to get that information. Now, I have an issue with this because at this level here, you've got to find that specific piece of information there. Now, one of the things I just run on the JavaScript here is I just want to clean up some of this junk through here. Is a couple of things. Oh, sorry, and I just want to go back through. So when I'm actually in an isometric or something like that, I suddenly think, oh, I just want to grab me a roof. Boom, I've grabbed the roof, or I haven't grabbed the roof. And so how do I actually do that? Now, inside Java, you've got Java, which is actually happening at a lower level, and then you've got document actions or JavaScript at the document level. Now, the document level will be like print or print pages 1 to 4 or something like that. So it's actually happening at the big scale. And then at the lower scale, if we come into interactive elements and we go in and we touch one of these, one thing that you'll find is that this object here is actually a 3D object, and it's sitting inside this area here. So this is an object that we've got to go and identify and do. So really it's a document item inside JavaScript that we've got to go and dig up. And so we've got buttons, and then we add some JavaScript to it, and then we have, so to get to this particular point here, to get to the roof, what we've got to do is that we've got to get into here to be able to get that object. So first of all, we've got to get into this. But we could actually have in this PDF maybe 3 or 4 buildings, and they might be on page 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we've got to make sure they're on the right page, we're in the right object, and then we can go down and drill down and go into there. So if we just look at our documentation first of all and look into the introduction, there's an explanation at the beginning about how to go and get an object. So first of all, you've got to find your page. So its pages start at 0 inside JavaScript. And then we've got to make sure that we've got the right index and the annotation index. If we see down here, this is the same as all of this put into a single line. Get this 3D annotation object, which is on page 1. And it's in the array, and it's the first item in the array, and it's called context 3D. And then when we get into that, we can go and do things. Now, when we get into the context 3D, we can go in, and then we can actually have a scene item and a mesh item, and here we've got a scene item, or we've got a node. So scene is the scene overall. So if we just go back into our other ones here, and I will get off that, get out of that particular selection once, and we just get out of here. On a scene level, we're doing things like here. Take the scene and make it illustration. So this is the same as if we come up here and we say, make this solid. So we're actually saying it's a scene thing. So it controls the thing overall. So once we've got into that area of the 3D, we can then go in and start touching those objects. So first of all, we touch them all globally. It's a bit like touching the model globally there. And if I go, model off, everything disappears. So that's at that particular level. Then we come down to nodes. Now the nodes that they actually have and the way that this 3D PDF is built up based on how it's done in Revit. So you've got this hierarchy of elements of doors, nurse call devices, plumbing fixtures and roofs and things like that. Now you can't edit these. These are actually how they're created, and this is how they're named. So I can't actually just use this one and just go generic roofs, because this one says no, the item that is actually called is roofs and in bracket 2. And this one's called walls 14. Now I might get another model and it might have 50 walls, in which case it'll have walls 50, and it might have plumbing fixtures 8,000, so that will be 8,000. So I'm not going to get a totally generic instance, but at the moment what I've actually got to do to actually grab everything to turn it off is hit it at this level. Now although sorry, that was a toilet, I'm not interested in it, go away you. And I've got to come down to this level here to turn it on and off, or to act on that object. So now what can we do with our objects? Now we can change its opacity, so we can make it lighter or darker. So again, that's a bit like the transparent, but instead of making everything transparent, we can actually just make some specific objects like the roofs transparent or semi-transparent or something like that. We can also colorize one of these, so we can use this materials. Also, some of the documentation actually say that you can't do that inside 3D PDF, but in fact is an example inside JavaScript that I was doing, and it's got all naffy with all of these. I just like to clean this stuff away, but I've still got code sitting up in which I can do. And this one here is going and grabbing this object, which is one of my roofs, and changing the color. So if I just go Control Enter, we'll go into there, and you'll see that that's been roofed. So if I change it to college, it's there. If I change it to illustration, it doesn't come through because there's no color in the illustration. And if I turn the roof off, and if I turn it back on again, it's still red, because that's a different function that's actually doing it. So it's a different area of the thing that it's doing. It's using materials. another way that we can actually see this now, so there we've had nodes, and then we have things called meshes. Now meshes are different from nodes because the meshes are the ones with the actual objects in them. So in this one here, and again, when I was trying to code this initially, I was just suddenly saying hit me that button, but that's what was occurring, so nothing was actually happening. But there's a way of iterating down through here. So here's a way where someone is iterating through all of these things to get the objects in this. So first of all, it's getting the annotation. You see this getting the annotation page and 0 number in the context 3D. And again, on this one here, you can see this getting annotation page, and all the rest of it's going through the same old blurb as it was before. And it's going this dot page number. So it's actually saying, I'm on this page, so this is what we're actually talking to here. If those buttons were on a different page, they'd be doing that. So on this particular one, so here on this page here, this is one that's going to spin the roofs. Now this one I'm fascinated with because it's actually got this roofs too inside here, which I've taken as an object. And I'm just going to, if I just go Control Enter onto that, you'll see that my roofs have rotated. Now if I just go Control Enter again, they rotate again, Control Rotate, Rotate. So somehow I've got those objects at this high level, and I'm able to do all of those things, although the bit that's actually happening in here. So I've still got to pick this apart somehow to say, well, how come it works on that? And it's maybe because it's using this transform thing to do it. So again, within the documentation, it has some explanations on those. So within the node, it has some things here. So there's opacity that you can hit. So get back to node. So here's a lot of the things that it can do. It can do this thing transform, but that's a lot to do with matrices stuff that I haven't quite got the head around at this point in time. And then it's got these first child and next siblings down that you can start working down through the trees to grab things at a specific level of data, as long as you know. The info doesn't seem to work at all that I found. But anyway, so the code that I've got on some of them are very crude. And then mainly I'm either testing in the debugger, or I'm actually testing through here to actually go through and get those buttons and alter the information through on some of the buttons through here. So at the moment, I've got objects and being able to move objects. So maybe another thing that you could do is actually split those roofs apart so that you're able to look in, but you can actually still see the roof objects. Again, that's just you can get some animation happening through here. The other thing that you could do is colorize things. The other one is to change the opacity of things. So instead of actually doing that one of doing a colorize, I can actually just make that one opaque or totally opaque, or make it very transparent, so I can change those ones. And this one just changes all the objects. I can actually just change a couple of the objects. So those are the bits that I'm playing around with. The roof on and the roof off one at the moment, where I am with these JavaScript ones, is that I'm actually calling each specific bit of geometry through here. Now, another one that I actually just want to demonstrate through on the coding one. So that's very, very crude. So it's not very transportable. I've actually got to drill right down, and I'd actually, if I want to do that with the walls, I'd actually have to do that on 14 elements at least for the walls. Now, another bit of JavaScript that I've got in here is this one here, which says, go and find me all the mesh names. Now, for such a small model, and if you look at this model here, it's got 14 walls because a lot of them are changing rooms through here. It's got some toilets and things like that. If I fire this one up here and go through here, you'll see that I've got over 115 different meshes. In fact, actually, no, I've got an index 89 through here because they have some odd numbering through there. As you go through. So the index, there's a lot more. There are around 115, because I've actually just done on that loop is that I've said, okay, then how we can do this is that this has actually gone through and worked through all of the loops. So this has iterated through all the loops, but I said start at 13. So I should start at 0, which is the first one, and I should make that larger than I did lie. And if I now run that one there, sorry, I'll just blow those ones there away. So if I just go back and do that one there again, Control Enter, you'll see as it goes through the whole lot of them that there's indexes. There's index 0 through to 89, so there's 90 elements that actually got 3D geometry that I could actually go through and switch off on inside that model. So things like plumbing fixtures, if we look at those, each basin object actually has 3 sub-objects, 3 nodes associated with those things. So they're a little bit more sophisticated as families, Revit families, than something like the roof, which only actually has 2 things. It has the outer wireframe and it has the inner object itself, whereas walls also have 3. That was another thing that I was actually quite intrigued with when I actually got down to a wall, because when we actually look at a wall and we just take one of these basic walls and we turn the geometry off, and this is this front wall, there's the ones around the edges, there's the ones at the front and the back, and then there's the wireframe. So if I actually just turn the doors off, maybe we can actually see some of those things a bit clearer. So we're just going to turn doors, that, and roofs we turn off. If we look at the walls and we do that one there again, and we look at this basic wall, so there's a wall. We'll take this wall here, maybe that's another one. We'll see where node 71 is. Okay, then that one there, you see it does the front and the back, all the outer edges, and where you've got doors, all of the inner edges around the doors, which you can see on this one here. They all come through, and then you have the wireframe overall, which is the third turn off. So the walls have 3 elements for those things. So if we're going through and tackling those things, the only way that we can do this is to try and iterate from up at this level and do all the turning off from that point there all the way down. So I haven't quite got to that level yet, and that will be my next effect. That I've actually got some JavaScript working at this level I'm just so pleased with, and other ways I'm just finding I've got a love-hate relationship with JavaScript. I love what it does as far as events and things, but I do find it really, really hard to code, and it's not very sympathetic about telling you what I've done wrong. But inside 3D PDFs, I'm quite excited about using colors to actually highlight objects and things like that. And I'm looking to explore this a bit further. So I hope that's been of interest for you. Thank you very much for watching. And if you like it, can you give me a thumbs up, please?